Crossing has been around for almost 20 years. Yeah, that long. Happy almost anniversary, AC! There's a lot of things that have changed throughout the series, and also a lot that has stayed the same. But sometimes I still come across small nuggets of information that I'd never seen before. So here are 10 facts that you may also not have known about Animal Crossing. Let's start back before the original Animal Crossing, before it was called Dobutsu no Mori in Japan and English-speaking countries knew it as Animal Forest. Back in 1986, when Animal Crossing's creator Katsuya Eguchi first moved 300 miles to work with Nintendo in Kyoto. Although over the years he'd done a lot of great work for Nintendo, like directing Star Fox and designing Super Mario Bros. 3 and Yoshi's Story, he was lonely. He was 21 years old and starting in a brand new place, but he missed his family and his old friends. He wanted to recreate the feeling of starting somewhere new, and that was the inspiration behind Animal Crossing. So one of the most wholesome games actually started as a feeling of loneliness. Sticking to the first game, but on a more odd note, Dobutsu no Mori was where Chip was first introduced, but Chip looked a little different in the Japanese version. It seems the developers realised there was maybe a slight issue with the design, as this was changed when Animal Crossing came to the GameCube in all versions other than the Japanese one. His e-reader card in Japan was still the original design. However, when he returned in City Folk, his model had been changed to match the Western versions of the game. Although it has never officially been acknowledged, it was definitely changed because they were afraid of being accused of being racist by overseas fans. As a side note, Chip is meant to be a beaver, but doesn't have the diet of one. He eats fish. His diet actually resembles more of an otter, so maybe there are more dark secrets behind the fishing tourney host. Speaking of Chip, in New Horizons you most likely have come across his son CJ, the CJ standing for Chip Jr. most likely. But in Japan, CJ's name is a little more punny. In Japan, CJ's name is Justin. Justin is a beaver. You can see where I'm going with this. Why this is slightly more entertaining in Japanese? Well, in Japan they don't really have the V sound, so foreign words with V's in it are written as B's. So CJ's name in Japanese is literally Justin Bieber. Recently in New Horizons we've seen the return of Red, and Isabelle clearly states for you to watch out for him. There are a few characters throughout the series who have disliked Red, but none more so than Tom Nook. But the two are similar in many ways. They both share a leaf symbol for their shops, and they both are based off creatures from Japanese folklore. But most interestingly is in the original Animal Crossing, their shop tunes are the same but in opposite pitches. Take a listen. This fox is stealing more than just artwork. On the topic of music, you may have never noticed, but Kick Shop in New Leaf also has a recognisable tune. The tune is actually based on, or is just eerily similar to the theme tune to the show A Town Called Eureka, or just Eureka if you're anywhere other than the UK and Ireland. The show aired from 2006 to 2012 and was about a town filled with geniuses. What this has to do with Kix, I have no idea, but it's a whistled tune, and that was probably the inspiration for Kix's shop music, because in City Folk, the tune played when speaking to Kix is whistled. If you're a long-term player of the series like I am, then you may have noticed a certain reset-hating mole being slowly phased out over the years. Although being a staple for the first 3 entries into the series, in New Leaf, Mr. Assetti's surveillance centre had been defunded by the government. And now in New Horizons, he has lost his job because of the autosave feature. The last one might seem more like a good reason, but actually, Assetti was being removed for a different reason. He was making little girls cry. Yes, Mr. Assetti was so scary to some younger players that he was making them cry, according to the late Satoru Iwata. In the City Folk manual, under Information for Parents, there was already a section that warned parents that Mr. Assetti may upset children. So, unfortunately, the angry mole lost his job because too many people hated him. However, in New Horizons, he does seem to have found a new calling in life, rescuing the player when they get stuck. He does seem to just drop the player though. A new character that has joined in New Horizons is Joan's granddaughter Daisy May. A cute little southern boar, except for that stupid little nose dribble that I hate so much, but she has a cute turnip hat. But there's a sad fact about her, and no, it's not the nose dribble. It's that no one can celebrate her birthday with her until 2024. Because she only shows up on Sundays and her birthday is on May 5th, that means the first time you can celebrate her birthday is 4 years after the game's initial release. This obviously applies to other NPC characters too, like KK Slider, who won't see anyone on his birthday until 2025, but she's so new and little, I can't help but feel sorry for her. For reference, the next time you can celebrate her birthday with her after 2024 is in 2030, which is so sad. Speaking of special characters, let's talk about our sweet little sloth boy, Leif. That's right, you heard me correctly. That is how the name Leif is actually pronounced. But I'm not going to stop calling him Leif, and if you keep calling him Leif, I'm not going to correct you. And I don't think he would either, because he's so polite. He's also the only character to have moving fingers, which is creepy. Another NPC with a weird fact about them is Celeste. In Happy Home Designer, she reveals that she can't actually fly, and that's why she likes stargazing so much, which I find both very wholesome and also very sad. But does this mean Blathers can't fly either? It would explain why he had to climb on top of a car when running from a snapping turtle instead of just flying away. Yes, I did just make those last two 1 point because I felt they were both too short to have a section each, because this next point is also about special characters. When Animal Crossing was being translated for Western audiences, they changed things that were Japanese cultural references that Westerners may not have understood, such as the bell shrine being turned into a wishing well. But there were a few other changes which made a little less sense. In the original Japanese, Sahara the carpet seller is male. She is male in every version of Animal Crossing in Japan, but in the West, she is female. However, she does retain her male voice in all versions of every game. The only reasoning people can think of for this change is because of her long eyelashes, which personally makes no sense to me because she's a camel and camels in real life have long lashes to keep the sand out of their eyes. But maybe the developers thought that overseas audiences wouldn't get that. But Sahara isn't the only character this happened to. It also happened to Gracie and Blanca. Gracie was most likely changed for being very effeminate and running a fashion brand, but again, she retains the male voice, which is the same as a lazy or a jock villager, two personality types that only male villagers can have. Blanca is slightly more confusing as she had a female voice in all versions of the original Animal Crossing, but then in Wild World she had a male voice in every version. This is nothing to do with Blanca's name, as in Japanese she is known as Ayashi Neko, which means suspicious cat, so who knows why they changed her. The translation teams obviously thought that overseas audiences were just far less tolerant of these characters. My final fact for you is that the player character actually speaks BBBS. If you didn't know, there are two, technically three languages in the Animal Crossing series: Animalese, BBBS, and Silence. Silence is rather obvious in that villagers make no noise at all. This option is not available anymore as of New Leaf. Animalese is now the default for villagers as of New Leaf, which is where they see each letter of a word in their funny little voice, meaning some words get mispronounced. You used to be able to pick between Animalese, BBBS, and Silence, but as of New Leaf you can't pick any of them. BBBS is a language made up of beep sounds. When you catch a fish or a bug and the text pops up, the sound the text is making is the player character actually speaking, so officially the player character only speaks BBBS. The only other character that had this trait were the snowmen in Wild World and City Folk, but in New Leaf, New Horizons, and the original Animal Crossing, they all speak Animalese. I hope you found these facts as interesting as I did when I found them. A like would be appreciated. You can leave any of your favourite facts about any Animal Crossing game in the comments down below. I'd really love to see them. Subscribe if you want to see more from me. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram if you want to see what else I get up to. The links are in the description down below. And I'll see you next time. Bye!